14 minutes after 8 o'clock, and it's time to go to film school with our good friend Joe Fortunato with us at 93.5, 1590 WAKR, and you hear that in the background. It's the Godfather theme, and I can't wait for Joe to dive into this one. And Joe, I'll let you take it from there. We've got what? Godfather Part II?
That's what we have. Yes, indeed.
So go ahead, jump into this, man.
Okay, well, Happy New Year, everybody, and I'm excited about this one. Ray, I know this is one of your favorites.
It is.
We decided we're just going to go big or go home with the starting of the new year. So we're doing Godfather Part II, which celebrates its 50th anniversary this year, and it was released December 18, 1974. It was directed, of course, by Francis Ford Coppola, written by Coppola and Mario Puzo. It stars Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, Robert Duvall, Diane Keaton, John Cazale, Talia Shire, and so many other great character actors. It won 6 Oscars, including Best Picture, which we'll get to in a minute. Supporting actor for De Niro, director, screenplay, art direction, and music. It was nominated for 5 more, for actor for Al Pacino, supporting actor for Michael Gazzo, who played Frankie Pantangeli, supporting actor for Lee Strasberg, who played Hyman Roth, supporting actress for Talia Shire, and costumes. So, well-awarded film. And it was voted the 7th greatest film of all time by Entertainment Weekly, thus being the highest-ranked sequel on their list. It was the first sequel, and this is where I was getting to a moment ago. It was the first sequel to win an Academy Award for Best Picture. In fact, it's only one of 2. The other one happened when Lord of the Rings, Return of the King, won. But it's also the only film with a prequel storyline, because they go back and kind of do a prequel to The Godfather, that was nominated for Best Picture. Robert De Niro became the first actor to win an Oscar for taking over another actor's Oscar-winning performance. So Brando won for Godfather for playing Vito Corleone, and De Niro won for Godfather Part II for playing Vito Corleone. That was the first. Francis Ford Coppola claimed that it was the first numbered sequel, Godfather Part II. There was actually a British film that had that before, but it is the first U.S. film sequel to use such numbering. And the only Best Picture winner with a Roman numeral in its title. So a lot of quirky firsts when it comes to Oscar. The line, one of the famous lines in the film, "Keep your friends close, but your enemies closer," was voted number 58 on the American Film Institute's greatest 100 lines of all time. Some background on the film: Coppola had a real horrible time directing the original Godfather, and he actually asked to pick a different director for the sequel. While taking a title of producer for himself. He chose Martin Scorsese, but the film executives rejected this. So Coppola agreed to direct the film. So we can imagine what it might have been like with Martin Scorsese as the director behind the helm. Coppola had several conditions that he was going to say if he was going to direct it. One was that the sequel be interconnected with the first film with the later intention of showing them together, which we know later on in years that it was called the Godfather Saga on television and all edited together. That he was allowed to direct his own script of The Conversation, which maybe we'll get to later this year in Fortunato Film School. And that he also be allowed to write the screenplay for The Great Gatsby. So all of these were his conditions, and he got them all.
Godfather Part II. And I just love the way it goes back and forth with Pacino and De Niro as Vito, bringing us up to date. Fredo, you're killing me. I love the whole, I thought it was done so well, Joe, of going back to the birth of Vito, and literally, I mean, as the Godfather, up until the next stage of the Godfather, which is Michael.
Well, what's interesting about that is they did a test screening of the film, which got negative reactions from the audience. They found that cutting back and forth between Michael and young Vito was confusing and bothersome. So Coppola and his editors went back and decided to decrease the frequency of those transitions in order to make the parallel stories a little easier to follow. So originally it was going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And now the current cut still does that, but they spend a lot more time with each segment, and audiences found that easier to deal with. I find this an amusing story. Originally, the actors in the flashback scenes wore pants with zippers. So one of the musicians pointed out that zippers hadn't been invented at that time. So the scenes had to be reshot with button-fly trousers. So this is why research is important, kids. Brando was scheduled to return for a cameo in a flashback at the end of the film. But because of the way Paramount Pictures, or at least the way he perceived Paramount Pictures, had treated him during The Godfather, he didn't show up for shooting on the day it was filmed, and Coppola rewrote the scene without veto, and that was filmed the next day. Production, in fact, almost nearly ended before it began because Al Pacino's lawyers told Coppola that he was having misgivings about the script and he wasn't going to come. So Coppola spent the entire night rewriting it before giving it to Pacino for his review, who fortunately approved, and production went forward with that. A number of other production notes. Lee Strasberg he got ill during the shooting of the film, so instead of delaying production, they just rewrote Roth's character to be written as an ailing old man, which he was. Peter Sellers was actually considered for the role of Hyman Roth. And everybody got paid a lot more this time than they did on Godfather. James Caan, who only had just a brief, flashback part, asked to be paid the same amount of money to play Sonny at the end of this film in a flashback that he did for the whole Godfather, and he got his wish. Talia Shire was only paid, can you believe this, $1,500 for playing Connie in The Godfather, and for this movie she received $30,000 with a $10,000 bonus. And Al Pacino was the biggest winner in this whole bunch. He was actually paid $500,000 plus 10% share, and he'd only earned $25,000 for the first film. One other thing I think is significant. Originally, it was supposed to be Clemenza who agrees to testify against the Corleones. But for a number of various reasons, Richard Castellano, who played Clemenza, wasn't going to work out to do this film, and so he was replaced by the character of Frankie Pantangeli, Michael Gazzo, and he went on to get an Oscar nomination for that role.
There you go. Godfather Part II. I think Joe and I could go on for another hour and a half about this movie for sure. But the one thing that I found interesting with this one is, Joe, sometimes you see this with sequels, is you do the sequel and you bring in different characters or you have to replace others. The cast was pretty much intact except for the ones that, quote, died off. And then the new ones they brought in, for example, Robert De Niro and such, so well done. The casting and the unity of this was to me, just terrific.
Yeah, I mean, it was, great filmmaking, just like the first one was. And one other condition for Coppola was that he would do this film if Robert Evans, who was head of the Paramount Studios at the time, and he was very micromanaging on Godfather, if Robert Evans had nothing to do with this. So that was another one of his conditions. I'll give one final tidbit. This is a spoiler alert, so although, 50 years on, I don't know if we're dealing with spoilers anymore, but Mario Puzo and Coppola, who wrote the script together, disagreed over whether Michael should have Fredo killed. And Puzo only agreed on the condition that Michael would wait until their mother was dead, which is in the film.
Ah, well done, well done. So, Joe, I have to ask you, because this is your arena. Do you prefer the original Godfather or Godfather Part II?
I do prefer the original. I know there's a lot of people that actually love the Godfather Part II better, but I don't know. I'm just guess maybe sort of a purist or whatever, and I enjoy them both immensely, of course, but I tend to favor the original Godfather. And,
a couple of other items here today, Joe. One of the reasons that you and I agreed to do this one today, Robert Duvall, celebrating birthday number 93 today. Of course, he played Tom in the movies. And Diane Keaton, celebrating birthday number 78 today. And, of course, she was Michael's wife in the movies. Two of those actresses and actors, I should say, from the Godfather movies.
Fantastic. Well, happy birthday to both of them. Great actors both.
All right, Joe. Great stuff this morning, my friend. Always appreciate the time. You can go back to WAKR.net and look at Joe Fortunato taking us to film school today with The Godfather Part II. My friend will...